Discover 4 spine-chilling deep woods stories revealed for those who dare to venture alone. The sun dipped low behind the trees, casting twisted shadows that seemed to slither across the forest floor as Sarah parked the car. She could feel her heart racing, the kind of thrill that screamed something was off, like dark secrets hiding among the branches. At 35, alone with her kids in the deep woods, she hoped this camping trip would be their escape. Little did she know, the woods were filled with whispers, tales of lost hikers and hauntings that lingered like an unshakable dread. As they unloaded the car, 8-year-old Liam bounced with excitement while 6-year-old Emma clutched her stuffed bunny, wide-eyed and quiet. The towering trees loomed above, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. "This will be fun, right, Mom?" Liam's innocent question echoed in the air, but something gnawed at Sarah's insides. "Dismiss it, just enjoy the moment," she told herself, forcing a smile. They set up the tent, tension dancing in the crisp air. As the mountains of wood piled high for the fire crackled and popped, shadows fluttered just out of sight. A stirring wind carried strange sounds that made her stomach twist. When they roasted marshmallows and shared laughter, a rustle from the underbrush jerked her attention. "Just squirrels," she lied, her voice trembling. But the creeping chill hinted otherwise, a predator lurking just beneath the surface. Night fell, swallowing them in a dark embrace. The glow of their fire flickered, casting trembling light on their faces. Sarah wrapped her arms around her children, yet felt more distant than ever, shadows breathing against her skin. She couldn't shake the unsettling thoughts planted from local legends, the ones promising doom for the unprepared who wandered too far. Could those stories be true? The next day, disconnection cut deeper than the lost signal on her phone. As they wandered deeper into the woods, Emma noticed a dirty, cracked doll half buried in the soil. Its vacant eyes seemed to peer straight through Sarah, sending shivers down her spine. "Can I keep it, Mommy?" Emma's voice was low, almost pleading, but caution held Sarah's tongue. "No, sweetheart. It's lost just like the others." Even as she said it, Sarah's heart raced like a hunter stalking its prey. Later, as evening crept back in, a figure appeared through the trees. Bill, the park ranger, suddenly stood before them, smile wide and friendly. "Out here to conquer the woods?" Something in his demeanor felt off, a polite smile that masked unnerving depths. The children adored him, but Sarah's instincts screamed otherwise. She recalled stories of sinister figures hiding smiles behind friendly facades. The night grew heavy, strange footsteps approached their tent, their laughter now unnerving as it morphed into eerie echoes among the trees. Emma stirred, sleep-talking about her imaginary friends. Sarah's breath quickened, nerves fraying. They should be safe. But the shadows lingering at the edges of the campsite felt alive, stretching closer. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. An icy chill wrapped around them as night clenched tighter, alone in the growing darkness. Each whisper of wind felt like a warning, a palpable threat. Fear gripped her, it hung in the air thicker than the smoke from their dwindling fire. Sarah caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow shifting too quickly, too deliberately. Panic ignited as she realized they weren't alone. Her heart thundered like a drum, urging escape. As she locked eyes with the shadow moving just beyond the flickering light, she knew this weekend would become a battle for survival. Sweat clung to her skin as she wondered, would they make it back home? Would they be just another whisper lost in the woods? Sarah's heart raced as she turned her attention back to the flickering fire, the panic threatening to swallow her whole. The children seemed blissfully unaware, their soft breaths drifting like whispers into the cool night air. Each crackle of the fire felt like a countdown, marking time against the approaching dread. She gripped Liam's shoulder tighter, drawing him closer, while Emma clutched her bunny, the small creature almost a part of her. Then came another rustle from the underbrush, a sound heavier than before, deeper, as if something was moving without care. "Mom?" Liam's voice broke through the tension. "I thought you said it was just squirrels." Sarah forced a smile, though her throat felt tight. "It is, honey. Just your imagination." But as the words left her lips, they echoed hollowly, mingling with the deepening fear that clawed at her. The shadows around the campsite seemed to swell, to bend and twist just out of sight. She glanced around the periphery of their small area, straining her ears for a sound that didn't belong. The friendly ranger, Bill, flashed through her mind, a smile that felt like a mask hiding something chilling. A hush fell over the trees, a knowing silence that amplified her unease. With shaky hands, Sarah pushed the thought aside, resuming her watch over her children. As she focused on the fire's warmth, a soft voice broke her concentration. "Mommy, I can see them," Emma whispered, her eyes glued to the darkness behind the trees. "Emma, sweetheart, it's too late for playing pretend," Sarah replied, but something in her tone made the little girl shift slightly, her eyes still wide, drained of innocence. "No, Mommy," Emma insisted, her voice trembling. "They're real. They're watching us." The chill in the air thickened, wrapping around Sarah's heart like a vice. She scanned the trees again, and then it happened, a flash of movement caught her eye. Just a flicker, a figure blurring between the trunks. Her breath hitched in her throat as the firelight danced, illuminating a glimpse of what looked like a small child, or something resembling one, darting between the shadows. "Liam." "Emma." "Stay close," she commanded, her voice a mix of authority and dread. She grabbed the carved walking stick resting by the tent, raising it defensively. The snapping sound of a twig echoed, sending a surge of adrenaline through her. It was too close, too alive. The laughter from the children suddenly morphed into a cacophony of giggles, a chorus that didn't belong, a sound that scraped against her sanity. They were not just innocent laughs, they were haunting, echoing through the woods, wrapping around her like chains. "Mommy, they want to play." Emma giggled again, her grip on the bunny loosening. "No. They are not your friends," Sarah shouted, her voice trembling as she felt the weight of the shadows press down on her. The shadows shifted closer, and emerging from the dense fog, the indistinct shape began to form a figure, vaguely resembling a boy, with wild hair and eyes full of mischief, yet devoid of warmth. Fear coursed through her veins, cold and fierce. "We need to go. Now." But just as she turned towards the tent, the ground shifted beneath her feet, a sound like whispers slithered through the air, beckoning them to step further into the dark embrace of the woods. As Sarah wrestled with her decision, a rustle erupted closer than before, and something cold and clammy brushed against the back of her neck. She froze, her breath caught. Whatever watched from the shadows wasn't just looking. It was getting closer. "Mommy?" Liam's voice trembled with uncertainty. Could they escape? And what were those things that were hunting them? As her heart thundered, she found her resolve. They had to fight, they had to make it through the night alive. But even as she prepared to move, the shadows thrummed with life, closing in like a tightening noose. And then, the forest echoed again, loud and clear, a chilling howl, sharp as ice, cutting through the air and sending a message: the woods were not just alive. They had appetite. Would Sarah be able to protect her children against the hungry darkness? Panic surged through Sarah as the howl reverberated, rattling her bones. It was deeper than anything she had heard before, a sound that made the children's giggles suddenly shrivel into eerie silence. They clung to her, the firelight flickering wildly, casting monstrous shapes that danced around them. "Mommy, what was that?" Liam's voice trembled, his wide eyes glimmering with fear. "I don't know, Liam." "Just stay close," she whispered, gripping the walking stick like it was a lifeline. The shadows around them seemed to throb, breathing in tandem with her fast-beating heart. A thrill of cold shot down her spine, and she turned her gaze sharply towards the trees again. The darkness felt alive, a shifting wall of obsidian seeking to consume them. She could taste the fear in the air, thick and metallic, as if it were a warning. The whispering grew louder, swirling around them. "Come play with us," it beckoned. The voices were soft and childlike but dripped with malice, the kind of innocence that twisted into something sinister. "Emma, hold on to your bunny," Sarah urged, trying to quell the rising tide of terror within her. In that moment, a blinding flash illuminated the surrounding trees. Instinctively, she flinched, raising her arm to shield her eyes. But when she looked again, there was nothing, only darkness creeping closer, as if mocking her resolve. "Look, Mommy," Emma squeaked, pointing. "They want to be friends." A figure emerged from the woods, stepping into the limited light. It was a child, definitely a child, but far too pale, skin almost luminescent against the night's backdrop. The boy grinned, showing too many teeth, and more shadows danced behind him, shapes writhing with intentions she couldn't decipher. "Play?" he asked, tilting his head, a grotesque mimicry of innocence. "Get back!" Sarah shouted, her grip tightening on the stick. The children pressed closer, and she could feel their hearts pounding against her. The boy took a step forward, and something shifted in the air. The shadows began to lift off the ground as if the darkness itself had grown restless, wanting to escape. Sarah felt her stomach drop. The other figures emerged behind him, more children, all strange and ethereal. They looked at her with unblinking eyes, mouths slightly agape, chattering indistinctly, their voices mingling into a cacophony of unsettling laughter. "Mommy, they look like us," Liam whispered, breath caught in his throat, confusion wrapping around his small frame. "No, they don't. Those aren't friends. They're not like you." Panic clawed at Sarah, the illusions tearing at the edges of her grip on reality. The whimsical laughter turned sharper, penetrating her sanity an almost irresistible lure. The boy with wild hair stepped closer, exuding an aura both curious and predatory. "We like to play. Come play with us forever." "Forever," echoed the others, as if their voices wove into a single chilling chant. Sarah turned, her heart pounding a furious rhythm. "We need to run." Yet she hesitated, what lay behind them felt just as dangerous. The tent, their supposed sanctuary, now looked hostile and unfamiliar. She stepped back, unsure, her foot crushing a dry twig that snapped loudly. Suddenly, the pale boy lunged, his form sleek and fast, blurring into the dim light. A scream tore from Sarah's throat as she swung the stick, barely catching him on the shoulder. But he didn't recoil, instead, he grinned wider, eyes sparkling. "That just makes it fun," he hissed, and in that instant, the woods around them erupted with laughter, not just the children's, but from the very trees themselves, a chorus that echoed through the night. Together they moved, Sarah pulling her children toward the edge of the campsite where the woods loomed threateningly. The laughter continued to ring, reverberating in her skull, drowning out her thoughts. "Mommy, I see them," Emma shouted, looking back with a gleeful smile. Liam tugged on her sleeve, panic written on his face. "Don't let them take us. Don't let them." As Sarah stumbled toward the darker trees, the shadows danced hungrily, expanding with ravenous energy. Could she outrun the curse of the woods? Could they escape this twisted game? And then, as if the night wished to unveil itself in its terrifying entirety, the earth beneath them rumbled, a solid, deep growl hinting all too clearly that this darkness held not merely tricks but something far worse at its core. What would Sarah find if they stepped into the very heart of the dark woods? The earth trembled beneath them, a low growl vibrating through Sarah's feet, filling her with dread. The trees surrounded them, towering giants that felt alive, their knotted branches twisting like gnarled fingers. A shiver climbed up her spine, but she forced herself to focus. Her children were counting on her. Stay close. She hissed, dragging Liam and Emma along the narrow path, their eyes wide with terror. They stumbled over roots and rocks, their small feet desperate to escape. "Mommy, please, don't let them take us," Liam whimpered, fear heavy in his voice. "They won tea, I promise." Sarah gasped, her own heart racing. She would not let them down. Not now. But the whispers grew louder, filling the air, the children's laughter echoing around them. "Come play. Come play forever." Their voices were everywhere, slithering through the trees, taking on life of their own. Sarah bit her lip, tasting blood, her grip on the walking stick intensifying. She needed to get them away from here, far from the laughter that clawed at her sanity. "Look!" Emma squealed, her face lighting up with a twisted kind of joy. "They're waiting for us." "No!" Sarah shouted, pulling Emma closer, but the little girl was already straining to look back, oblivious to the danger lurking in the shadows. "Look at their faces, Mommy. They want to play." Emma's excitement bubbled over, her innocence blinding her to the threat surrounding them. "They're not real. They're not like you." Sarah snapped, trembling as the trees seemed to curl towards them, branches stretching as if reaching to snatch her children away. She considered turning back to the camp, the flickering firelight now a distant beacon in the oppressive dark. But every instinct warned her that moving forward was the only option. Then, before she could breathe, the laughter collapsed into a sudden hush, plunging them into an unsettling quiet. It was too quiet, it felt wrong. The shadows pooled at her feet, gathering, swirling like a tempest. A chill sank into the air around them, gnawing at her bones. "Mommy?" Liam whispered, the name tremulous on his lips. She squeezed his hand tighter, forcing herself to keep moving. "We can't stop. We have to keep going." Just as she took a step forward, a shadow darted past them at blinding speed. Sarah froze, her breath caught in her throat. The pale boy appeared between the trees, standing utterly still, his wicked smile still plastered across his face. "Why not join us?" he cooed, tilting his head as a shiver of delight crept into his voice. Behind him, the other children stood in a row, their eyes glinting with a hunger that sent a spike of terror through her heart. "Please, go away," Sarah shouted, her voice shaking. Panic surged, twisting her insides as she felt the weight of their eyes, hungry and expectant. Suddenly the earth growled again, resounding like a warning shot. But before she could react, the pale boy lunged forward, vanishing into the cover of darkness, only to reappear mere feet away, effectively blocking their path. "Come and play," he sang, his voice echoing eerily, reverberating like a broken record. "Mommy, he's going to get us." Emma screamed, terror overtaking her innocent excitement. In a harrowing moment, Sarah felt her resolve cracking. The shadows were thickening around them, pressing closer. There was no escape. She would not let them take her children. But in an instant, fear twisted into a desperate plan. "We're going!" Sarah screamed, and she surged towards the woods at a breakneck pace, adrenaline pumping, dragging Liam and Emma behind her. Branches whipped at them, the chilling laughter echoing in their ears, but she didn't look back. Each pounding footstep felt like a countdown, the foreboding darkness closing in behind them. Sarah focused on moving, pushing past the howling wind, the whispers morphing into enraged screams. The feeling that something was hunting them solidified, the chill in her bones deepening. And then she saw a path that veered off into even darkness, a fork that could lead them to safety or further into the abyss. At the last moment, she skidded to a halt. "Which way?" she gasped, panic flickering in her gut. Her voice trembled as she looked down both paths, haunted faces dancing in her mind. What horrors awaited them no matter their choice? Would they fall deeper into the trap, or find a way out before it was too late? The decision loomed over them like a dark specter, an answer that might decide their fates. And Sarah realized, maybe the real game had only just begun. What would they face in the depths of that awful darkness? Without another moment of hesitation, Sarah lunged toward the path on the right, keeping the children tethered to her side as they plunged into darkness. The air grew thick, soupy with an unnatural chill that clung to her skin. Shadows pulsed around them, like the heartbeat of a beast lying in wait, and every rustle of leaves felt like a warning. "Mommy, where are we?" Liam's voice trembled, fear resonating within the tremor. Just keep moving," she urged, desperately trying to quell the rising panic in her throat. But each stride forward felt like it was dragging them deeper into an unseen nightmare. The whispers returned, a chorus of mocking calls that swirled through the night. "Come play forever," they lingered in her mind, taunting her, making her question her own grasp on reality. Emma's hand felt small and cold in hers. "What if we escape?" she whispered, her hopeful innocence hitting like a knife in Sarah's heart. Could they really escape this nightmare? "Shoo. We're going to be okay," Sarah lied, but her heart thundered in her chest like a drum of dread. The weight of the children's trust pressed on her, suffocating. She glanced back, fighting the urge to retreat, but darkness enveloped every inch behind them. The path twisted and turned beneath their feet, growing narrower, an unwilling passage that felt like it was closing in. The laughter echoed again, now shrill, dissonant. "You can't run from us." It felt as if the very trees were mocking her, shaking with a life of their own. "Mommy!" Emma squealed, tugging at Sarah's side to point into the distance. "Look!" Ahead, a faint glow flickered in the murky distance. Relief washed over Sarah. Hope. But as they stumbled closer, the light morphed into a swinging lantern, illuminating a grotesque scene. A group of shadowy figures danced in a circle, their limbs unnaturally long, their faces obscured. They looked like children, but their movements were erratic, fluid, and wrong. The pale boy stood among them, grinning, as they beckoned Sarah and her children closer. "No! It's a trap," she cried, pulling her kids back. Panic rushed into their voices as the figures spun faster, their whispers growing louder, drowning out all thought. "Come play with us!" came the collective chant, a harmonized dirge that threatened to drown her resolve. In a split moment, Sarah made a decision. "We need to turn back. Now!" She yanked on Liam's arm, ready to pull them from the grip of the light, but they were a moment too late. The shadows began to swirl, encasing the flickering lantern and muting its glow. "What's happening?" Liam sobbed, sucking in breaths like he was drowning. The laughter morphed into gnashing, serrated sounds that felt like teeth scraping against bone. Breathless, Sarah pulled the children with her. But the shadows closed in on them faster than she could run. Everything spun a dizzying kaleidoscope of horror. The trees creaked, and the ground shook. They were caught in a storm of nightmares. Then, with a suddenness that knocked the wind from her, the path beneath them ruptured. The earth yawned wide, a cavern of darkness threatening to swallow them whole. They stumbled, the trio teetering on the very edge of a terrifying abyss, Sarah's heart racing as she pictured falling into that endless night. "Mommy!" Emma cried, clutching her leg with desperate strength. "Hold on, I want to let you go," Sarah shouted, adrenaline surging through her as she gripped the children tighter. The shadows slithered ever closer, a dark tide rising. The lantern flickered back to life momentarily, revealing the twisted faces of the figures. They were no longer kids, they were ghastly reflections of what they could become. Sarah knew they had to jump back before it was too late. But will she choose the right way, or will they all fall into the darkness? What new horrors awaited if they did? The choice hung in the air like a guillotine, trembling. With the ground trembling beneath them, Sarah's mind raced. She could feel the darkness licking at their heels, clawing for a chance to drag them into the abyss. The figures swirled, their laughter ringing in her ears like a twisted symphony of malevolence. "There!" she gasped, spotting a cluster of trees to their right. The only option left was to veer away from the edge, hoping that salvation lay through a thicket of gnarled branches. Run for those trees. Emma moved first, her little legs scrambling as fast as she could. Liam followed, glancing back in fear, his face pale, barely able to comprehend the urgency. Sarah watched them bolt every step away from the precipice, a flicker of desperate hope. The shadows surged forward, and panic ignited the air with palpable terror. With a primal scream, she pushed forward, darting after her children, feeling the shadows reaching, grasping, begging. Branches snagged at her clothes, tearing desperate shreds as she plunged through the dense underbrush. Each heartbeat thundered, drowning out the whispers that crawled under her skin. "You can't escape. You're ours. Mommy, hurry!" Emma cried, clutching her hand as they dove into the trees. The glowing lantern flickered again, illuminating their path just as the laughter crescendoed, a cacophony that rang like nails on a chalkboard. They dove into a small clearing, with a decaying log resting in the center, a sanctuary, a hideout. "Quick! Behind the log!" Sarah urged, throwing herself and her children down. She pressed against the rotten wood, her heart racing, the cold bite of fear mixing with all-consuming dread. The children leaned in close, their breath hitching in unison, tiny bodies trembling. The whispers grew louder, circling around the clearing, stirring the fallen leaves into a swirling dance, as if the shadows were searching, probing. "Why can't they just leave us alone?" Liam whimpered, his eyes wide with terror. "Because they want to play," Emma murmured, her innocence flickering in contrast to the horror surrounding them. "Stop. Just stop talking," Sarah hissed, not wanting to acknowledge the dangers. The children had to remain silent, for each voice could summon those twisted shapes once more. A presence loomed at the edge of the clearing, something darker than night itself, an entity made of shadows. It loomed and twisted, pulsing with a life of its own, coming closer. "Join us," it whispered in a voice that was neither male nor female, but something far more sinister. Fear washed over Sarah, choking her. "We won't. We will never join you," she shouted, trying to find strength in defiance. Laughter erupted, a manic howl reverberating around them. The shadows laughed, slithering towards the log, their forms contorting grotesquely. Suddenly, a rustle erupted in the trees nearby. The shadows momentarily halted, focusing on the sound. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, clutching her children tighter as the unseen entity seemed to tremble with rage. Out of the dark, a figure emerged, tall, with long limbs, echoing the shapes they had seen before. But this one seemed different, more solid, the light of the lantern casting eerie shapes across his face. It was the pale boy, that same grin stretching across his features. "Why do you resist?" he asked, his voice a chilling melody that resonated in the air. The shadows surged once more, their laughs blending into the boy's voice, wrapping Sarah in a cocoon of despair. "Come play, come join us, get back!" Sarah yelled, fists clenched tight. "Stay away from my kids!" But as she screamed, the shadows thickened. A barrier formed between them and the shadows, and they pushed closer, closer, until the fabric of reality itself began to unravel. "Mom!" Emma cried out, her voice thin, like glass ready to shatter. Would the shadows break through? Would the boy tear apart their world, dragging them into that torment? Just as the boy took a step forward, time seemed to freeze. Sarah's heart raced in her chest, the weight of all her choices crashing down. Would this shadowy menace claim her children? They were trapped, but what if something stirred at the back of her mind, an idea, a shred of hope nestled in the depths of her fear? But before she could act, the shadows lunged. What would she sacrifice to save them? As she braced herself for the inevitable, a piercing scream echoed through the night, a warning intertwined with a promise. The darkness stirred with violent anticipation, ready to consume them all. The shadows surged forward, twisting and writhing, as Sarah's resolve began to crack under the weight of despair. Time slowed, each heartbeat echoing in her ears as the world around them darkened, thickening like molasses. "Emma! Liam!" she shouted, gathering what little breath she had left, forcing out each word with a desperation she didn't know she possessed. They huddled close, eyes wide, skin pale like the moon. Their fear pierced through her heart, carving deep. The pale boy remained, his grin stretching unnaturally as shadows danced around him. "Join us," he crooned again, the words a haunting whisper that seeped into her bones. Each syllable twisted in the air, luring them deeper into the abyss. "Get away from my children!" Sarah screamed, her voice raw. The shadows paused. For a moment, silence blanketed the clearing, a fragile pause in the chaos. Then came the piercing scream again, a cry that resonated like shattered glass, rising from the depths of the woods. Was it a warning? A plea? The shadows recoiled, alien eyes darting around, as if seeking the source of the cry. "Mommy, I'm scared." Liam whimpered, clutching Emma's small hand, fingers entwined like lifelines. Sarah clenched her jaw, her instincts roaring. The trees towered above them, ancient witnesses to horrors untold, yet they offered her a decision. "We need to go," she urged, fueled by their resolve, the flicker of hope igniting once more. But where? Which direction? The world had twisted in upon itself. "Follow me," she shouted, suddenly breaking from their hiding spot, dragging her children along with her. They sprinted deeper into the woods, branches grabbing at them, pulling at their clothes like grasping hands. The laughter followed them, sinister and taunting, echoing through the foliage. "You can't escape," the shadows sang out, their voices a dissonant chorus that filled the very air with dread. But Sarah pushed forward, driven by dread and duty, each step a small act of rebellion against the dark. Suddenly, the terrain shifted underfoot, the ground sloping downward, a jagged path of crumbling earth leading into a hollow. "Don't look back," she cried, forcing the children onward, into the embrace of the unknown. The lantern's glow flickered, disallowing any clarity, but it shone bright enough to guide her trembling fingers. "Mom, wait!" Emma yelled, her voice a string of innocence fading as they tread deeper into the darkness. Sarah paused, her heart racing. This was it. They could find sanctuary, a safe place away from the shadows. But the whisperings grew louder, twisting into words that echoed from the dark corners of her mind. They were promises and threats, begging her to reconsider her flight. Then she heard it, a soft thud, like something heavy landing on the forest floor. Her stomach lurched, a cold wave washing over her. The children sensed it too, they froze, breaths held tight in their throats. Out from the shadows, the figure emerged, no longer distorted. A woman, pale as the moonlight with wild, empty eyes, stepped forward. "You did this," she hissed, voice chilling as it slithered around them. "You brought them to me. Who are you?" Sarah demanded, pulling her children behind her, every instinct flaring. The shadows seemed to dance around the woman, whispering secrets too dark to comprehend. "I am the keeper of this forest," the woman crooned, a sinister smile carving her face. "And you, dear mother, have no idea what you've unleashed." Liam trembled, his small body quaking against Sarah's, and Emma began to cry, loud and piercing. The wood seemed to close in, the darkness tightening its grip like a noose. "Run!" Sarah yelled suddenly, fear igniting again inside her chest. They propelled themselves forward, but the shadows reached out, snaking around their ankles, stubbornly pulling them down. Just when hope flickered at the edge of darkness, a blinding light erupted from the depths of the woods. The woman screamed, a sound torn from the pits of hell, and the shadows recoiled as the light advanced, illuminating the area with ethereal brightness. "Mom? What is that?" Emma asked, wide-eyed. "I don't know." Sarah gasped, instinctively huddling her children closer. The brightness expanded, growing until it washed over everything, pushing back the darkness that sought to reclaim them. Would they finally be free? Or was this another trap, another cruel trick designed to lure them deep into the shadows? As the shadows began to retreat, the woman's gaze turned sharp, cutting through the brilliant light with a fury unmatched. "Run now!" she hissed, but her voice was laced with a hint of desperation. "While you still can," and with that, the ground beneath them trembled again, as the light flickered like a dying ember, promising both salvation and doom. What would become of them in the heart of this treacherous woods? Would the light save them or plunge them into deeper horrors? The forest whispered answers, but they remained just out of reach. The light shrank back at the woman's frantic command, flickering against the darkness like a candle battling the wind. Sarah's heart pounded in her ears as she took a step into the glow, knowing full well it could be both their savior and their damnation. "Mom! We have to go." Emma pulled at Sarah's sleeve, her eyes wide and brimming with tears that sparkled like glass. The strength in her voice felt like a fragile thread, yet it cut through the air, sharper than the fear gripping their hearts. "Come on!" Sarah shouted, yanking her children along, pushing against the suffocating thickness of uncertainty. The shadows seemed to hiss, enraged by their attempt to escape. Tendrils of dark mist reached for them, wrapping around their ankles like chains. The children stumbled, nearly falling, but Sarah refused to let them go. "Hold on to me!" she cried, feeling the weight of her children's fear tugging her down. The woman stood still, her wild eyes darting from the children to the shadows that writhed restlessly, as if torn between realms. "I warned you!" the woman barked, voice twisting into a cacophony of anger. The shadows recoiled slightly, obeying her but moving in sync, a predator waiting for its prey to falter. With a surge of fear-driven adrenaline, Sarah sprinted towards the thinning darkness, dragging her children behind. The light Kieran hung at her side, swinging wildly. The aching desperation was a drumbeat, pushing them forward through the suffocating dread. Branches clawed at them from all sides, the woods roaring alive with shrieks and rustlings, as if the forest itself clamored for their defeat. Emma's loud sobs echoed amidst it, twisting like knives in Sarah's stomach. They hadn't even passed 20 paces when a freezing wind swept by, chilling them to the bone, and a chorus of whispering shadows surged once more. "Join us!" they echoed, the chilling refrain mixing with a symphony of laughter, cutting deeper into Sarah's resolve. It was more than words, it was a call, a pull into a void that promised warmth and ease, a perverse seduction. "No! We're not joining anyone!" Sarah screamed, though her voice trembled at the edges. She staggered forward, encased in protective fury, tightening her grip on Emma's sweating hand. It felt wrong, a fierce and urgent urge to turn around, however cruel the forest was. Digging her heels in, she battled against the whispers urging her to surrender, to yield to the joy they promised for a price that she dared not consider. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled again. Sarah stumbled, glancing back at the woman who seemed to grin wider, the shadows behind her growing thick and wild. Something flitted around Sarah's vision, a darkness moving with intent. "Mom! Look out!" Liam shouted, pointing a quivering finger as the shadows coiled like vipers, ready to strike. The light flickered once more, casting long, grotesque shapes. The shadows smothered the brilliance, daring it to dissipate. In that split second, Sarah's heart sank into despair. They were cornered, trapped between choices filled with sorrow and fear, and an overwhelming weight pressed down upon them, threatening to snuff out their light. "Sarah," the woman hissed again, softer this time, a coaxing melody. "You can stop the suffering. You can join us." Just as panic threatened to swallow her whole, Sarah recoiled at the thought. "Never. We fight." The last word echoed as she ushered Emma and Liam into a staggering dance around encroaching shades. The light flared brilliantly, trying to help them through, and Sarah plunged forward, battling against the tide. "Keep moving. Focus on the light," she shouted, urging her children into motion. But as they pushed ahead, the shadows rippled around them, desperate and hungry. Yet, the overwhelming glow began to dim, greedily consumed by the encroaching night. Just then, an unearthly howl erupted from the depths of the woods, a dark promise that sang of chaos. The earth trembled violently beneath them, cracking, and Sarah's eyes darted wildly. "Run!" A roar of terror filled her lungs, and they sprinted ahead, but even in the light's grasp, the shadows clawed at their backs relentlessly. As they stumbled, a sudden heaviness pressed down around Sarah, as if the forest itself was conspired against them. She gasped for breath, glancing back at the woman's eyes, which seemed to swirl with a fatal knowledge. "Leave me be!" Sarah yelled, but the shadows answered, closing in again like a predator with its prey firmly in its jaws. There was a flash. Was it light? Or darkness? Before she could decipher it, everything went black. Would they withstand the deep wood's final snare? Where had the light gone? What awaited them in the heart of the darkness? The whispering shadows drew nearer, and Sarah's resolve would be tested in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Silence swallowed them whole. The world turned to pitch, heavy and suffocating. Sarah felt a flicker of panic erupt as she clawed at the void, trying to pull her children closer. "Emma! Liam!" she called, her voice swallowed by the shadows. A creeping dread settled in her gut. Their hands had slipped. Heart racing, she turned around, fighting against a terror that churned in her chest. "Mommy!" A muffled cry, emerging from the suffocating blackness, snapped Sarah's attention. Emma's voice pierced through the darkness like a distant echo from a forgotten dream. Relief washed over her, and she lunged in the direction she thought she heard it. "Grab my hand." Tentatively, she extended her arm, her fingers shaking as they brushed against the cool, damp air, searching for the warmth of her daughter's skin. Shadows hovered around her like a swirling mass of dread, threatening to consume her whole. The moment their fingers connected, a jolt surged through her. A spark ignited the gloom, illuminating the way for an instant. She caught sight of Emma's frantic face, wide-eyed, searching, and terrified. The light flickered again, revealing Liam crouched in the dirt, head buried in his arms. Panic gripped Sarah's heart as she knelt beside him. "Get up, Liam. We have to move." But he stayed there, trembling. "Mom, I can't, it's too scary." His small voice quivered with despair. The shadows danced dangerously close, hissing and howling, teasing with promises of release from fear. "Liam, please." Sarah begged, desperation rising. She looked around, feeling the pressure of the encroaching dark. She couldn't let it win. "Just a step. Just come with us." In that moment, she could feel them watching, waiting. The woman's cruel grin flashed in her mind. "Join us," they whispered again, their voices soft and alluring, slithering into her thoughts, dismantling the walls of her resolve. "It's easier here, just let go." "No." Sarah shouted into the void, forcing her will against the creeping temptation. She could feel it pulling at her like tendrils of ice around her heart. "We fight. We will not join you." The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned by her defiance. In that brief pause, she seized her chance. Grabbing Liam, she hoisted him against her, clutching Emma's arm tightly. "Run!" she barked, her voice resonating with newfound strength. They scrambled forward, feet stumbling over the uneven ground, but she kept a grasp on their hands, holding them tight as if the woven threads of connection could shield them from the dark's grasp. They sprinted down a narrow path just as the blackness seemed to surge back, creating claws of despair reaching toward them. Heart pounding, each breath a desperate gasp, they pushed through the stinging branches that snagged and tore at their clothes, urging them backward. Liam was still crying softly beside her. "Stay close, stay strong. We can't give in." Through the chaos, Sarah glimpsed a shifting light ahead. Was it real, or just another trick? She urged her kids toward it, nearly dragging them along. As they approached the glow, the shadows shrieked like banshees, a menacing choir, drowning out Liam's whimpers and making Emma's grip slacken for just a second. Sarah turned sharply, fear igniting like wildfire. "Hold tight," she commanded, as sheer terror flooded her veins. The light pulsed brighter, and with a flick of its brilliance, Sarah could see the silhouettes converging behind them, dark figures, each one a twisted reflection, emanating their desires. "Join us." They beckoned, insidious and sorrowful yet intoxicatingly tempting. "No." Sarah's voice wavered, anger boiling within her as she gripped her children tighter, ready to fight. But another wave of darkness surged forward, slamming into her with a force that knocked the breath from her lungs, sprawling her and the children across the forest floor. Glaring up into the maw of blackness, she fumbled for the light with trembling hands. How could they escape when every path seemed blocked, every moment dragged like an eternity? The shadows writhed, hungry and alive, inching closer. Just as despair began to seep into her bones, something aglimmer, a spark shot through the darkness. What? Through the haze of looming despair, a figure materialized, the silhouette seeming to dance with the shadows, weaving in and out like a dark specter. Who was it? And as the figure stepped closer, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The whispering shadows intensified, now growling, a warning of something ancient and dark. What price would they demand for the escape they so desperately sought? The echoes of the forest erupted, a cacophony of questions pounding relentlessly. Would there be a way out, or would they become part of the woods forever? The shadows intertwined, closing in with a vengeance, and the chilling truth hung in the air: this was just the beginning. What had awaited them in the heart of darkness? Would they find the light, or was the end drawing nearer than they dared to imagine? The weight of darkness pressed down on Sarah, the air thick with malice and despair. Desperation flooded her veins as she struggled to rise. The shadows clawed closer, flickering at the edges of her vision. She could feel their whispers wrap around her, silencing every brave thought. But she wouldn't yield, not when her children needed her. "Liam. Emma." She croaked, her voice hoarse but resolute. The fire to protect them ignited within her, a blazing signal cutting through the oppressive gloom. "Mom." They chorused, a chorus of fear and faith. Emma's small hand found hers, and the moment their fingers brushed sent a spark of strength coursing through Sarah. Liam followed close, his eyes wide and glistening with tears but carrying determination as he squeezed her arm tight. Pushing against the ground with every ounce of will, she forced herself into a standing position. Her heart pounded like drums in her ears, a relentless battle call urging her forward. The shadowy figures shifted, writhing and undulating as if the night itself was alive. "Join us," they beckoned, their insidious melody promising eternal warmth, a never-ending game they couldn't resist. "No!" Sarah shouted, each word shattering the illusion. "We won't join you. We're leaving." As if in response, the shadows surged forward, bearing the hunger within. But fearlessly, Sarah shoved her children behind her, positioning herself as their shield. "Run. We have to get to the light." With that command, they broke into a sprint, propelled by the sheer will to survive. The woods around them shifted, transforming into an endless maze of darkness. Each time they twisted and turned, it felt as if the trees closed in, refusing to let them escape. "Mom, I can't keep up," Liam cried, his breath coming in gasps. "Just a little bit further, honey. You can do it," she urged, determination coursing through her voice like lifeblood. But the shadows' calls grew louder, breaking amidst the rugged branches, wrapping around them, and pulling them back into chaos. They dashed into a small clearing, where the oppressive weight of darkness faltered for just a flicker. A pure white light hung suspended in the air. Sarah's heart soared with hope at the sight. "Look, kids! The light!" But as they made for it, the shadows writhed, dark tendrils lunging and wrapping around their ankles, trying to drag them back into despair. "Mom! It's too strong!" Emma screamed, her small body jerking in the grasp of the darkness. hold on tight. Sarah screamed, using all her strength to pull them forward. Together, they yanked against the shadows, each step a struggle against the rage of the forest, every moment wearing them down, threatening to unravel their connection. Just a few more steps, Sarah urged, the light beckoning with promises of safety. They pushed harder, desperation empowering their every move. Then suddenly, the ground shook violently. Tremors rattled Sarah's bones, a powerful warning that sent a jolt of fear through her heart. A fissure opened up beneath their feet, yawning wide like a mouth ready to swallow them whole. No! Sarah screamed, yanking her children closer, feeling their panic, yet refusing to relent. With one last surge of energy, she lunged forward, a final desperate attempt into the light. And then the world shattered. They burst through the darkness, a brilliance enveloping them, washing over like a tide. A blinding surge of warmth flashed and, in an instant, the darkness receded, collapsing into a swirling whirlwind of shadows behind them. The oppressive whispering ceased, replaced by a silence filled with the crisp sound of leaves rustling, birds chirping, a sun-kissed morning breaking through the canopy above. They tumbled into a sunlit meadow, sprawled on a carpet of soft grass, gasping, trembling. Sarah's heart raced, the thrum of adrenaline mixing with euphoria. They had escaped. Mommy, Liam panted, tears shed not of fear but relief. We did it. We're safe. Emma's wide-eyed innocence flooded Sarah with the love of the world she would do anything to protect. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, washing away every fear, every nightmare from the night. She pulled her children into a fierce embrace, her heart swelling with gratitude. The warmth of their bodies next to hers was real, it was safe. I'll always protect you. I promise, Sarah whispered, the weight of the world finally lifting. In the distance, she thought she caught a glimpse of the forest's shadowy remnant still lurking at the edges, a distant echo of what they had escaped. But now, it was just a memory, the darkness could not touch them here. They had defied its grasp and emerged victorious. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Sarah let out a relieved breath, focusing on the laughter of her children, the joy of life bursting anew. They were together, safe, and free. With every heartfelt moment, she felt renewed, the shadows of the woods fading behind her. And in that moment, she knew, hope could shine, even in the darkest of forests. This was not the end, but a new beginning, a testament to the strength of a mother's love against the encroaching dark. Thank you for being part of this journey. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters, only true fans understand how vital these actions are to keep the channel thriving.